Welcome back to Life After the Party. We have a special guest today. Her name is Danielle Manbeck. She is from Cadiz, right?
Yes.
She's from Cadiz. She works at the Tri-County Help Center right uptown. She's been there for almost 2 years, and they provide services for people. They're also in Belmont County, Harrison, Monroe. And let's let you talk about it a little bit.
My name is Danielle Manbeck, and I am the legal advocate for Harrison County with the Tri-County Help Center. And I'd like to give a little bit of the history of the agency. It was established in 1979 by a group of women in Belmont County who saw that there were no services that existed to help other women who were victims of domestic violence. And these visionary sisters met at each other's homes to start the task force for battered women. The seed money that they used to start the agency came from a provision in, at the time, a newly established law in Ohio that allowed for a percentage of marriage license fees to be given to local domestic violence shelters. And then later on, as they grew, they were able to secure grant funding thanks to the guidance of one of the early leaders, Margaret Peg Watercott. And it was incorporated into the Women's Tri-County Help Center. And, during the first years, victims of domestic violence were sheltered in a room at the Clarendon or the Floridian hotels, and volunteers delivered food. They helped victims through the court system and advocated for the rights of domestic violence victims within our communities. As the financial standing of the agency grew, more staff were hired and programs were developed to reach out to more victims. And in 1986, the agency purchased a house that would become Peg's house, named after, Margaret Peg Watercott.
Okay.
And, we've been able to continue to grow in both the number of persons involved with the agency as well as the number of staff and the services that we provide.
Okay.
And then in 2003, responding to growth of the agency, the board of directors voted to change the name from the Women's Tri-County Help Center to Tri-County Help Center Incorporated, with a strong commitment to continue to support women's issues. But we know that not just women are, victims or survivors of
abuse.
Right.
Because it could happen to anybody.
Right.
So, it's very fulfilling. It's a very fulfilling job. Today we have 14 full-time staff. We have part-time staff. We have contract counselors. We have offices in Belmont, Harrison, and Monroe counties. So, we are, so we've got the St. Clairsville office in Belmont County, the Woodsfield office in Monroe County, and again, the Harrison County office is right here in Cadiz.
Okay.
Located right next door to the prosecutor's office. So we do a lot of different things. The agency is kind of two-part. We have the advocacy side where we, go with survivors and victims into the court proceedings, help them get petition for protection orders. We can go with them if they need resources or if they need, help filling out job applications or anything like that. That's what we're here to do.
Oh, wow.
And then the other half of the agency is the counseling side. And, we just within the calendar year of 2024, we had 449 counseling clients in the three offices. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. It might seem like we're a small area, but just those numbers alone. And, we are able to, reach out to those people, and not just through the counseling and the advocacy, but we also do community education and outreach. We go to we have collaborative boards. We go to tabling events. We go to Sargus. We go into these schools and teach Aaron's Law, which is, giving the kids better information on how to recognize abusive relationships, what the patterns are, how to recognize red flags.
Oh, wow. It's important.
Yeah. And, getting out there and getting to those kids, early so that they can recognize what is healthy, what isn't healthy. And,
Right.
And then just by doing, the outreach through, like I said, Sargas, tabling events, going into the schools and colleges with Aaron's Law. Last year, we were able to reach 6,537 individuals. So,
Wow.
For being for being a small agency, we do have a lot of outreach and impact.
That's important.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Me and Ryan actually, when we went up to uptown Cadiz last week, we realized that there are a lot of people that need assistance.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough last August to go out and set up a table with the health department for Overdose Awareness Day when they did, the drug take back, and, they passed out Narcan and, anything else. And just, it was really honestly inspiring to hear the stories of the people that came in that were picking up Narcan kits for themselves or for family. And, hearing that, one person had been, clean 11 years and somebody else had been clean 8 years, and again, because I have lived in Harrison County all my life, I wasn't blind. I knew that these were issues that were in this county that nobody talked about.
Exactly.
And it's very refreshing to not only have this platform that you have to talk about these issues, but to also work in a place and have networked with people that are like, hey, this isn't okay, and we can do something about it. All we have to do is just talk about it. I mean, there's so much stigma, not just with addiction and abuse, but just any of the barriers that are in the county that, people are finding that isn't giving them access to certain services, and this is just us trying to bring the services to them.
See, that's perfect. That's exactly what happened to me whenever I had problems. I didn't know where to go to. I don't know. I didn't think we had anything to offer, which is not the right way to think, but that's what I thought. And then when I started, with Ryan and getting involved and figuring out things, this county has a lot to offer. And I know it's not plastered all over billboards and stuff, but that's fine. I mean, just, we can do by word of mouth or by a podcast or whatever.
Right.
People can listen, they can find out, and we can get this, probably, I don't think the problem will ever be solved, but we can help it.
Right.
We got the right steps now.
And, while our counselors don't work with clients with substance abuse disorders, we do refer out, so I'm amazed every day at the resources that can be found, maybe not directly in Harrison County, but they're close enough that, I know where to refer somebody if they need, assistance with, things in Tuscarawas County or in Jefferson County, and really it's amazing that.
Well, it's an amazing network for sure.
It is an amazing network.
Like I just sat and listened to this, and it just is incredible. I mean, and I think about, indirectly, you're not dealing with people with addictions, but technically, there's probably a lot of people that, they go I would say they go hand in hand. I'm not saying all, because there's people that are just that are violent people, and they, but I think I would venture to say that if you add a substance, that violence is going to get a lot
Right.
worse.
Yes, big time.
Right. Well, not only that, but anybody that has, has suffered trauma, addiction might be the way that they are trying to cope with it.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's self-medicating.
Yeah.
That's people do that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mental health, and it's a very sad state of affairs. But I mean, I venture to say, even on a small scale, if you don't have a problem with addiction, I would venture to say that people tend to do that in their everyday lives. Just I mean, I don't want to say, but people call sober people normies, right? So,
right.
But like normal people, they're like, I mean, you've got the housewife who says, I'm going to have a glass of wine because this day's been so hard,
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that that's an issue, but I'm saying, I get what you're saying.
I agree with everything Ryan said. I mean, it's absolutely.
Yeah.
Like today, I went up to go get Hayden some food from McDonald's. We met a gentleman, and we probably should keep the anonymity. Ryan, probably. We met a gentleman at Uptown Cadiz, and he just got sober from alcohol, and that's amazing. We love seeing that. Just one day out's great. It's a celebration, you know what I mean? 24 hours is hard enough. But he made it through the program. We got his number. And I knew the person he was with, his nephew. I think that's what he is to him. And he was kind of shy. I knew him from the past, maybe school or something. But we have crossed paths a couple times in my life. And he was, I saw him when I was uptown. And we were talking, and he said, "Hey, did my uncle reach out to you?" And I said, "Yeah, he did. We had a good conversation. Things, seem to be looking good for him." And we got into him, because I was kind of curious, and he had some issues in the past as well. And I said, "Well, you just need to know that you're not alone in this county. There are a lot of help." I said, I gave him a card that we give out, and I said, "You have me and Ryan's number on there. If you need anything, just give us a call, and we'll try to give you the resources you need." And those resources come from you guys, you, Lori, Bolin, all of them. And it's amazing that we're starting to figure everything out in this community.
Right. No, it is important because, if we don't advertise the resources and provide them, they're never going to get into the right hands, and then they're not going to be utilized.
Exactly.
But one of the things that, kind of getting off topic, but one of the things that we just started in Harrison County this year is I facilitate a support group for youth ages 13 to 18.
Oh, great.
We meet the first and third Monday of every month from 3:30 to 4:30 in the office. We just got this started. We had actually been fortunate enough to have been awarded a grant through the Harrison County Community Foundation last year for our youth program. So it's called Safe Spaces, and
I like the name.
Safe Spaces, SAFE. Nice.
That's a cool name. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's small, but I tell you what, I've had a couple of kids that have been coming. We, have snacks. We, just to give them a place to talk.
Right. Hang out.
We did an outing recently. We went to
cool.
Peace Flower Pottery, and they got to do hand build
That's cool.
clay. So we're going to go back. The next group, which I believe is June 2nd.
Okay.
We're going to go back, and everything that they made has been fired in the kiln, so it's ready to be painted. So we're going to go back and do that.
awesome.
So
That's cool.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it was so much fun. It was.
I bet.
These kids really, really enjoyed it, and we do Sunday bars and
wow.
Just fun stuff to just kind of give them a place where, maybe if they're being bullied at school, or if they're, having family trouble at home, or maybe they're, homeschooled and can't make friends easily.
Right.
This gives them a place that they can come and, find out that, oh, well, I'm going through this, and this person went through a similar thing. So to kind of give them
a sense of community.
a sense of community,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
and maybe learn coping skills from each other, and so I'm really really excited about that.
That's very important.
Yeah.
I think that just all the things that you're talking about. I mean, it's very sensitive subject. I mean, the fact that you have to go through. I mean, what people go through, and like I was telling you earlier, but when we were off air, that I was around something like that whenever I was selling outdoor. But so, and you said about the sport group, I was wondering where, do you rely on grants heavily? And
We do. I mean, it's a lot of grant funding, but
Okay.
we and then we get a lot of assistance through the Mental Health and Recovery Board of
Cool.
that they cover Belmont, Harrison, Monroe counties as
Oh,
well.
wow.
So if somebody needs to, if somebody needs counseling, and perhaps they are not insured or they can't afford the services, we are fortunate enough to be able to have that covered by the Mental Health and Recovery Board. So, that
Good.
is very, as long as they, meet the income guidelines and the criteria of being in one of those 3 counties.
Come on in.
It's very helpful, because that, I think, is a barrier for a lot
Yeah.
of people seeking, mental health care, because they don't have, they don't have the funds
the
or they don't
resources, yeah.
Right.
exactly. So we just try to make sure that nobody goes without. And
Right.
and especially with this being May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Exactly.
It's very important that if you think you need help, if you need somebody to talk to, if you have family issues, grief, anything like that, we have counselors available. I've actually now have a counselor in the Cadiz office 2 days a week.
Oh,
I've got somebody in there on Wednesday and on Thursday.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and listen, and we can take kids as young as the age of 5.
Oh, wow.
So, which is, incredible, because not anybody, not a lot of people offer that.
No, nope. I know.
Sometimes 8 years old, 8 years is the cutoff. Some counselors don't see kids at all. So, this at least, we are, and we at least acknowledge that these
Yeah.
kids do need help at a much younger age.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe, that it would be a resource that is definitely something that, a lot of kids could use.
Yeah, and I think that it's so important, because that they have a voice too about all this, because I was blessed that I grew up in a family where I didn't see anything like that. But my heart goes out to families that do see this, and and I won't. When my oldest daughter was younger, my wife's a teacher and was teaching in a different school district, and there was a student who witnessed his mother being killed by his father.
Oh,
And it was awful. To say the least,
Yeah.
of course. But he was doing really well in school, and she was really trying to help him. And I'm not outing anyone, because I'm not going to say any names. But at the time, and this was years and years ago, the counselors had to come in and say he can't take the pet, he can't take care of the pet, because that violence was coming out into the hamster that they had at the school and things like that. And so you think about that, and you think about just kids shouldn't have to go through anything like that. And from everything that I heard, his mother was an amazing person, and his dad just was anyway. But I think that it's extremely important that kids get to have a voice, because a lot of times I think that children, and I think all of us, adults, children, we don't feel like we have a voice sometimes when there's things that are happening that seem out of our control, and that we can't figure out what we're supposed to do because everything just seems to be crumbling around us. So it's wonderful that exists. I mean,
because and kids, whether it's they've experienced abuse in the family or they need to talk to a counselor for any number of reasons. Kids need to be able to have that voice, and they need to be able to learn coping skills to process, whatever it is that their grief or trauma might be, and it is important, but it's not just important, it is important for the kids because, we can get them that help early and, hopefully have, long lasting, benefits.
Yeah.
But
kind of stop the cycle.
Yeah.
Is what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it like bluntly like that, but I mean,
that could.
It's just like addiction cycles. I mean, it's like alcohol or anything. If you can stop that cycle, because if it comes through your family and you, I mean, I'm saying without saying it, and I think you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. No. And it's about recognizing these cycles and breaking them before it becomes too late, and again, whether it's providing counseling services to, kids, or doing outreach at, juvenile center or in the schools, to teach them about healthy relationships and, what is okay and what's not okay, who they can talk to if, they or someone they know is going through anything like that.
Right.
It is important because, with us being in a rural area, it's very difficult because, a lot of times there's the barriers that survivors face in a small area like this are going to be a lot different than what they're going to face in a more urban area. Transportation is a barrier. The fact that first responders or, maybe the first responder that is going to transport them to the hospital, maybe they are the abuser's cousin. Maybe the nurse in the ER is the abuser's neighbor. You know, that's why a lot of times it goes unreported or underreported.
Too many connections.
Absolutely.
And, with it being, or it's a personal matter, family would take care of it themselves. So again, with the stigma of not talking about it, not acknowledging it, I think, again, adds to the
stigma.
The stigma. And that adds to the likelihood that these cycles aren't going to break. And that's why it's so important to, make ourselves known and make it known in the community that you do not have to go through this alone. You do not have to go through this at all.
Exactly.
Whatever you need, you reach out, and that is what we do, is we advocate for these people and we get them these resources. And if they have a need that we don't have a resource for, we will refer them to somebody that can help them.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
Very good start. And you guys offering counseling that young is a game changer.
Oh, absolutely.
Big time. I never heard of that before.
Yeah. So it's been pretty amazing just to see the number of kids that are getting access to, the mental health care that they need.
How are you guys advertising this stuff? Word of mouth?
Word of mouth, flyers. We have social media posts. We've actually, we go around, a lot of it's flyers. A lot of it is word of mouth, or putting up, passing out information at the tabling events. We go pretty much anywhere. I mean, I've been to the resource fair that the health department hosted in Hopedale a couple months ago, and it was amazing. It was amazing because we got to set up an hour an hour before it started.
Oh, cool.
For just the agencies and service providers to network.
Oh,
For
wow.
us to all sit down and say, hey,
Yeah.
you know, my name is Danielle and I work at Tri-County Help Center,
That's important.
and this is the services we offer. Mm-hmm. You know, and then
So you're like pulling your resources together
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're like, well, we could do this. We can offer this.
Yeah.
Can you guys do this? There's a safe house here, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
So
it's-
that's awesome.
it's pretty amazing.
Big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty amazing.
Well, I mean, speaking of safe houses, because I know that you had brought that up earlier, and it might have been before we were on air, but so I mean that's really important, and
Yeah.
and you know the fact that you're out in the community has to be huge because I'm guessing, and I'm just guessing here, that they're not going to report it the first time, the second time, the third time.
Probably not.
I mean, I don't know what's the statistic. I mean, and you don't have to say numbers, but roughly, like how. I'm curious about how. Like when someone seeks help, because it's just like anything else. It's just, I mean, like I'm making these analogies between, addiction and that, because you kind of touched on it too, saying, about like just a small community saying, well, we'll take care of it ourselves because, I'll make sure that they won't ever touch her again or vice versa but I just wonder. I mean, because it should never go beyond one time,
right?
But how does that kind of play out?
So, on average, it takes a survivor 7 attempts at leaving before they are.
Wow.
Before they're before they leave, and again, that's an average. And with each attempt, the lethality increases. So,
the chances of them not surviving the next one.
Yeah,
that's
greatly increases.
So, and the thing is, domestic violence isn't just the physical violence. There's the manipulation, the mental, the emotional abuse, the financial abuse.
Yeah.
So there are various types of abuse that, a lot of times people focus on the physical, but, there's the emotional, the mental, there's financial, there's coercion and control. And when somebody comes in and they tell you, because, they're in an abusive relationship, but they say it because it's been mental and financial. And they fear that nobody's going to believe them.
Right.
Because, if he would have hit me, at least I would have had a bruise.
Right.
Like, how do you prove that?
Yeah.
Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know what? And the best thing that any survivor can do, especially if they're trying to get a civil protection order against their abuser, just be honest. The biggest thing is convey your feelings to the judge in the hearing. Let them know that, this is what happened to me and why you are in fear. Why you feel like that this is, taking a toll on your mental well-being. But that's the best advice that I can give to anybody that is trying to go into a courtroom to seek a civil protection order against their abuser. Just be honest and convey your feelings. And
it's going to be hard.
It is. Nobody ever comes in.
Yeah.
Nobody ever expects that they're going to have to, take the route of petitioning for a protection order because they fear for their safety.
Exactly.
Can I ask you something? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but okay, so I think that I mean this kind of plays out. I see people, because if you're thinking financially, so I bet there's a lot of people, and it's just like we talk about stigma. There's a lot of people that were like, what do I do? He controls, or she controls every bit of the finances. I have nowhere to go. I have nothing to do. So I will stay in this because of that. Is that something that seems to happen?
That is,
or the kids probably.
Because because if they feel like they have no way to escape, then they're more likely to kind of stay in a bad situation, and if they would just reaching out, because, if they are wanting to leave and they feel like they have no place to go, well, guess what? We have a domestic violence shelter located in Belmont County.
Wow.
It is safe. It is free. It is, at, like I said, an undisclosed location. So, there's, there's not going to be a chance of somebody finding you. It's got shelter staff, shelter advocates, there's security. So there are resources where, we can take you and get you into a safe space. We can, if it's a matter of, well, it's me and my dog. Well, guess what? You can bring your dog.
That's cool.
I have kids. Well, guess what? You can bring your kids.
Yeah, bring them.
And the shelter staff will work with those survivors to find out what their end goal is, what their outcome goal is. So if they maybe they want to get an apartment on their own, then you know what, we can work with that.
Right.
We can assist you with filling out applications for rental units. We can find you resources that maybe if you need to get first month's rent or security deposit, or hey, I'm my abuser, he's been arrested, he's going to jail, I'm going to go back to the house, but I need groceries because my check won't come in for 2 weeks.
Right.
Again, we can get you those resources as well.
Wow.
So there are a lot of options that again are there. Just
ask.
Just ask.
Well, and you know what? It actually, it's so great because that story plays out because you think about 1979 when it started. It was a grassroots program.
Yeah.
So, like during that grassroots time, I'm sure because in the 70s, that's coming off of like the 50s where you listen to.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, but and so
it's true.
You like that whole thing. I would imagine back then that ladies that they were getting together money for someone to go to somewhere else, and the fact that those resources now come through different agencies, but also I bet, if I don't want, I can imagine because it's so emotional that it would be something that if there's a will, there's a way. We're going to get you into a situation where you're not going to have to worry about anything. Yeah.
No, and if maybe they moved here from maybe Cleveland or maybe Indianapolis, and they have family there and they want to go home. Well, you know what? We'll help you. We'll help you get home.
The thing of it is it starts out with just a simple conversation.
Yeah.
You don't have to push the button now.
No.
Just talk.
Yeah, and and it's fortunate. Because we do make sure that we maintain good relationships with local law enforcement. So we get referrals from the sheriff's office. We get referrals from Cadiz Police Department, maybe Jewett PD. And again, right next door to the prosecutor's office. They've referred people over that maybe I've been able to get those people the resources they need. Maybe they were able to petition for a protection order and it was granted. Maybe they just needed to get into counseling.
Right.
Well, I would imagine because here's where there's a good side too. Like the bad side is we're in a rural area and they're like, well, we'll take care of it. But the good side is with the law enforcement, the context that you have, it's a smaller area. Now I could be wrong, but it's a smaller area and they can, I don't want to say keep their eye on, but they have it's I don't want to say easier because it's not the word that I'm looking for, but they have a better chance of interfering with something that's going on in a smaller area than if there was a huge cityscape where they're like, well, I have to, that calling is in my district or what have you.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
No. So, and not only that, but they are familiar with everybody.
Exactly.
So,
they know people.
Yeah.
They know
and I think that maybe that presence will kind of, deter some bad behavior.
Yeah.
I've had, people come to me that, have maybe had neighbor problems, not something that, is criminal, but, just having law enforcement go over and talk to them, because that's a lot of times that's enough to deter some of the behavior, because as long as they know that they're under the watch of law enforcement, they don't want to.
Yeah,
they don't want to cross that line.
No, nobody wants to cross that line.
Not at all.
Well, I mean, I think that your normal. I mean, I don't want to say the wrong word, but your average person, let's just say that your average individual, and we all have, I mean, like I'm convinced that all of us have some sort of an issue that it's not, there's nothing exclusive. It's just some are worse than others.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I think that for the majority, if a police officer says something to you, I mean, first off, like you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, does somebody see me?"
Yeah.
Secondly, you're going to be like,
Self-image.
"Okay, I'm not going to do this." But the people that you're dealing with, that I venture to say that they would try to heed that warning as far as in front of that officer.
Yeah.
But then behind closed doors, it might be different.
Yeah, I
and
can see that.
that's scary. I mean, that's a very sad thing.
That's something you can think about. It needs to be thought about.
So, but
I mean, I'm not saying anything against the officer. I'm just saying, I think behind closed doors. I mean, we don't. No one knows what happens behind closed doors with anyone.
No,
But
usually having law enforcement talk to somebody to deter bad behavior is usually effective with like some of the
like
juveniles.
you said, the neighbors. And
the juveniles and some of the neighbors. It's just.
But when someone's got that pattern, then I mean,
That's
you have to
hard
really
break.
have a watchful eye at all times.
And you do. And the thing is, an abuser can just like as. Anybody can be a victim of domestic violence. Anybody can be the perpetrator as well.
Yeah,
So you might be surprised at somebody that.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody's like, oh no, it's not possible. That's such a good
not
guy.
him. Yeah.
Well, and also on the same kind of line, and it's not always,
Lower income.
It's not always lower income. It's not always that the man's the abuser.
Right. That's why I was talking stigma, because it happens in all walks of life.
Oh,
I mean, you could, there could be someone who's massively rich and, everyone thinks, oh my gosh, they're this great person.
Yeah.
Or they've got everything. What else would they need? And they could be a horrible individual. I mean, that's just human beings too, but, anyway.
So, but it just goes to show, you're not always going to know. You can't judge a book by its cover because, you never know that, maybe somebody that is, really, really rich and you might have, and it might not be what you think. It's like, it might be the wife, is the
abuser.
Is the abuser.
Yeah, right.
Like I said, it can go either way. And I've, trying to make sure that people understand that so that
that's huge.
Trying to end that stigma and trying to get
that's a huge stigma.
Minds to
because
open.
I would venture to say, and I mean this sounds, and I'm not, it's not chauvinistic at all, but I think a man being abused it may be even harder for him to say something because you're like. Your peers, you're looking and you're going. My peers are all going to be like, "Oh my gosh, your wives."
Exactly.
So
and they don't want to talk about it because they do feel that it's embarrassing or emasculating or for whatever reason, And I've known people in my own family that were the victims. They were the victim, and and it was not the scenario that people
would have imagined,
would have assumed. It was, it was female on male violence, and so no, I can verify that anybody can be an abuser, and anybody can be a survivor.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
and I would venture to say that when it, I mean, just from like, and again, I'm not centering anyone out, but if you're, a lot of people have values that they're raised by, right? And so they wouldn't raise a hand to a woman. They
Right.
wouldn't. And so if that's the way that they were, the values that the core values that they have, and that female is
Exactly.
putting on them, then what they're going to probably try to do is just make sure that everything's okay. Keep it, and I'm sure that's with all abuse. Keep it calm and make sure everything's okay. Let them be the winner and everything. Let them be and winner's a bad word, but let them be the center, and we'll just take care of you. And I'm sure that's how a lot of it goes. And that's awful, but
Yeah.
that's what I think.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, because a lot of it is, the way that they're raised. A man is raised to not, lay a hand on a woman, and they'll take that to heart, and it doesn't matter what is being done to them.
Right.
They're just like, okay, and then again, they assume that they're not going to be believed. They don't want to go and report it because they don't want to, they're going to think that I'm weak, or they're not going to believe me, or they're going to say, yeah, right, that doesn't happen. It does.
Oh, absolutely.
So if somebody would, and it doesn't matter, anybody who discloses abuse should be believed. And victim blaming, again, a lot of it come forward because they fear victim blaming, and so just it's important to just listen to them, believe them, validate their feelings, and don't assume. Don't assume,
Right.
and let them maintain their autonomy. Let them make the decisions that they want to make. Maybe their decision is to leave, and yay, we're going to support that.
Yeah, yeah. You
But
have
if
to,
their
yeah.
decision is to stay, we're going to support that too.
Exactly.
But we're just going to make sure that you're well versed in a safety plan. To make sure that you don't, you don't run into a situation where you have no means of escape.
But that's got to be a difficult situation. I mean, when like, I'm sure, and your whole being is saying, leave this person. But there's a person who says, we're going to make it work. And I'm not trivializing it by any means, but that would be so difficult to, as you, the people who are trying to be like, look, let's be sensible. Let's talk about this. Let's think about this. We're going to help you. We can get you here. We can get you there. And then they say, no, we're going to make it work. What do you do then? What's the protocol then? Whenever now, at this point, now this is a house that is not fit for a couple to be in together. They shouldn't cohabitate because there's obviously an issue.
Yeah.
So what do you do then? I mean, that's something that is really just intriguing to me.
You do the same thing that you would do if they chose to leave. You're going to support whatever decision they make.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
You are
have
going to listen to them. You're going to provide, emotional support. You're going to make sure that they know that should they change their mind, that they are always welcome to come back. You want to make sure that they, and again, are well versed in their safety plan. Do you have a go bag packed? Did you squirrel money away so that you can leave and get a room for the night if you need one?
Exactly.
To make sure that they even, for example, maybe they have a coworker or an employer that kind of knows what they're going through, that they can maybe have a safe word or say, hey, I'm taking my lunch break. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, call me.
Yeah.
Just to make sure
check.
that just to check. I mean, and to make sure that they have a good support group when they leave you.
It's hard to see when that happens. True story in
it is.
rehab. Well, two stories actually. We had a guy come in one night. It was late at night. Looked like he just got in a fight. Two black guys and whatever. But he took too much of a substance and passed out. Older gentleman, lived in Columbus, like the nicer part. And he was there for like maybe 3 days and he wanted to go home. I mean, this was not his cup of tea. He was ready to go. And a couple of us sat him down and just said, hey, listen, like if you go back home, like you're going to end up back here. Why don't you just try to stick it out a little bit? And every day got better.
So he was abused by his...
Well, we don't really know. There was just a lot of confusion because, he belonged to a country club. He was had a really good job. Just had a lot of money. You know what I mean? And when he came in to see us in our gowns, or whatever, in our shirts or whatever from Walmart, he just wasn't liking it. It didn't feel like home. So he wanted to leave, and we ended up getting him to stay. And then there was another guy. Now
I'm curious. Why was his face all beat up? He didn't say?
He really didn't say.
Because that's why, I thought that it was kind of, like that he was abused by a female. That's why, where you were going. But
well, the other one, I think that was more of like the stigma of it. I just didn't know when I wanted to push that story in because you had a really good flow going on. I didn't want to waste it. But that's the stigma of it. Don't ever think you don't belong somewhere. Like if people were wanting to help you, I didn't feel comfortable either, but I got used to it. You connect, you form a bond in those places for 30 days because that's where you stay.
Right.
But they can't make you stay. If you want to leave, you can AMA and leave. You're going to pay for it, like money.
Yeah.
But we had the guy leave like that too. It was 2 days away from graduating. And he just got upset one day and left. And they caught him going down the hallway, the counselors, and they tried to stop him. And like, dude, you have like 2 more days, and you're going to graduate. Like everything's paid for.
Yeah.
Like you're doing really well. And he probably would have had to go to a sober house for like a couple more months or something like that, just to show him like there's places that are more meant for like kind of introducing you into the wild, kind of like you have to get a job, get AA meetings every day. He would have done that, but he left. He just left, and I see him. I hope he doesn't get mad about that. But I said that. But I'm a Facebook friend of his. I see him out and about. I think
that and it kind of all does tie in together because we're all human beings, and so when what might be right to my mind or your mind or our minds, to be like, well, this seems cut and dry, black and white. Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and then life's going to be better.
Right.
That's not the case with all human beings. We all know that, and you can see that in every walk of life and in anything that you do. So, I'm sure that you fall into that a lot with people. Because it just seems like it'd be so simple, but there's nothing simple about life.
No.
So the fact that, people are dealing with things that we can't comprehend. I can't, and I know that he probably can't. I can comprehend it, but I can't imagine it. You know what I mean? And I think, I give you huge credit for being in the middle of all this at all times, and it would be uplifting. You said how uplifting it is for you, and clearly, I was talking to someone today in the post office, and we were just talking about helping others, and I said, when you help someone, you're helping yourself so much. So that, and it's not like this self soothing thing. It's just that the byproduct of it is that you feel so wonderful that you can be a part of making something better for someone, and so that has to be very and I know that you're not going to want to sit here and go, oh, look at me. But it's something to be proud of for sure. And I mean, I know that there is a constant uphill battle because this never stops. What you're going through, it never stops. I'm sure. So, I mean, I know it is not, but I don't know like you do, but.
No, I mean, it doesn't, but again, not everything that I do focuses 100% on survivors and abuse and doom and gloom. It's not always that, but again,
no, there's a positive side for sure. I mean, that's what
any of the, whenever I get to a chance to outreach, if I'm, working with kids and, and when I, see these, when we're doing activities and I'm going through scenarios and, we're talking about, healthy relationships. And when I can see that it clicks and they're like, and then they raise their hand and participate. And I'm like, it does. It makes my heart happy.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, you think, I can only imagine, I mean, because kids in situations, I mean, that's supposed to be their protector, right? And so, and I'm not, I mean, I know that it's well-rounded, the group. It's not just like they're dealing with abusive, but you don't know where they're at.
That's right.
And so, the fact that they can open up about that and then see their peers opening up, and then maybe those kids that are like, I'm not going to ever say anything about this. Yeah. They're like, well, and even if they I bet they pulled you aside before and said, this, and this. I'm sure. I mean, that would have to happen. But
and I just let them know that, whatever they want to talk about is fine. That, and if they want to, maybe if they need somebody to accompany them so they can go and talk to mom and dad, or if they need somebody to go with them so they can talk to, a police officer, anything like that. Absolutely. I'm there to support them.
Facilitate. That resource is there. Yeah.
That resource is there. And, but I've also, another thing that does is a positive, when survivors that I've worked with, we keep in touch.
I'm sure.
I like to follow up with them every once in a while, and sometimes they'll call and follow up with me, and just knowing that they went. From the first time that I meet them, it's usually maybe the worst day that they could ever imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And then just to see them not just survive, but to thrive.
Yeah.
Right.
They, maybe they've gotten their degree, or, they've been able to, heal enough to maybe try to find, maybe start a new relationship.
Right. I have a question there.
Kids, yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was on my mind. So, okay. You tend to see, and it's with all relationships, but there's a pattern, right? So when someone's being abused like that, is there a pattern? Do you see that? Is there a high percentage of a pattern that they seem to pull themselves towards another type of abusive person? I mean, like, how would they know? But I mean, I know that happens, but I don't understand how. I mean, is that discussed? I guess I should say.
Well, we try to at least, again, get them to recognize good behavior versus bad behavior. What is healthy, what isn't healthy.
And I'm not trying to make controversy. I know that seems to be something that happens a lot. For people, fall back in the same situation.
And the thing is, we actually do run 2 support groups. One is for 18 and up, and then the other one that I facilitate is ages 35 and up.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, because somebody maybe in their 40s isn't going to be as comfortable talking about something with somebody that's 18.
Right.
So, and it's peer facilitated, so it's, but these are all things that we talk about, where they now recognize the behaviors that weren't healthy.
Are there triggers? I mean, like, is that the right word to use? I mean, but are there
Triggers is
signs that they're like triggers would be like things that you go, wait a second, I see a trigger in that person that's like what I remember. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense because, and we do when we talk about anything, I always make sure that I tell people, this is what we're going to be discussing.
Right.
So if it's triggering for anybody, please raise your hand. Let me know if you need to take a break. But no, the red flags, I think, are the
red flags.
Yeah, the red flags and the green flags.
And how do you know those red flags? I mean, like, because in the beginning of any relationship, I mean, everyone's going to be on their best behavior.
Well, yeah.
Right. So how does someone who comes out of that, who is now like you say, you keep in touch, and I got my degree. This is so wonderful, and then all of a sudden, I think I've worked back up to being in a relationship, and what if, you know what I mean? And I guess you're not going to know that, but are there things that you say there are red flags that you can see beforehand that you will know as soon? I mean, how can you though? That's the thing I don't understand.
I think when somebody comes out of an abusive relationship before they're ready, I think they're extra critical. They pay extra close attention to someone's behaviors, and because they're waiting for a reason to trust or
exactly
to distrust,
to move on. Yeah,
they probably put a wall up.
They do, which is completely understandable, and again,
and probably healthy.
Yeah,
I mean, in a sense, right? Yeah, because you don't want to be wide open.
You don't want to be wide open, but you don't want to be completely
closed off.
Yeah. So I think that is one of the things that is beneficial when they do come to the support group, because it gives them all the ability to kind of talk about their situations, and maybe somebody has a coping skill that I haven't tried.
Right. You can pick that up.
But I can pick that up, and then that way everybody can kind of
learn off each other.
So, and again, that is something that they can discuss, is how they learn to trust again and to not fall for the same kind of
trickery,
faux-mance, I guess.
Faux-mance,
faux romance,
sounds right.
Because a lot of things, because a lot of it will be, easily recognizable. Whether, and again, not just the physical abuse, but there's, love bombing, where it's just, you're the greatest thing ever, and everything.
What'd you say? Love bombing.
Love bombing. Yes. Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
No. Yeah. No. It's where
but it sounds. I mean,
they're overly affectionate, and just trying to be everything that you could ever dream of.
Right.
And then you fall for that.
Yeah.
And then
it goes away.
That's when
the bomb goes off.
Well, and the thing is, it follows a pattern, because there'll be the love bombing to get you pulled in, and then then little things will start, maybe little cracks, maybe it's criticizing what you're wearing, because who are you dressing up for,
right?
Oh, you'd look better in this outfit, or telling them what they can and cannot eat, who they can go out with, if they can see their friends, maybe taking their phone, going through it, tell a lot of people about like location sharing on devices, they want to know where you are at all times.
That's weird.
It's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is. So, and again, so that behavior starts, and maybe the partner is like, hey, this is not cool, when they start pulling away. Well, guess what comes back? The love bombing.
I'll be darned.
Reel you back in.
Yeah. And that could be mental.
Yeah, it's
mental shock. Yeah,
it is. I mean, And again, when people say
It's mental ping pong.
it is mental ping pong. So, and again, that is something to be kept in mind when people ask, well, why didn't you leave?
Right.
Or, well, if it was that bad, you would have said something. Well, you know what? And a lot of times, again, people are embarrassed. They don't want to talk about it, or, they've been threatened that if you tell anybody, I'm going to do this,
worse.
this, and this.
Right.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of reasons that people
Just won't say something.
Yeah.
Or they love somebody so much they just don't want to. They think they can fix it.
oh yeah, no, and and really the only person that you can never fix is yourself.
Right. Yeah.
And but again, my job is just to, no matter what, be there to support them, whatever
Facilitate.
decision.
Yeah. Make sure that somebody that they have a voice
Yes.
and that you can listen. And that's probably, if there's anything that you want to talk about that's coming up, but
Plug. She can plug her
yeah,
stuff.
that's what I'm saying. If there's something that you want to come, because this has been extremely interesting for sure.
We can go on forever,
and we could continue. And we always say we'll have you back on. And if there's any events that you want to have back on, but I think that we've kind of covered the gambit, and
we did.
I think that. We're about an hour in, and it might be a good time to just talk about what you have going on and what you might want.
Yeah. So, again, I have the Safe Spaces support group in Harrison County. It's at the Cadiz office on the first and third Monday of every month. It goes all summer. So, and there'll be activities and outings, and that's from 3:30 to 4:30 for kids ages 13 to 18. If you want to register your kid, just call the office. It's 740-942-1018.
I want to do that one more time.
Yeah, what was that one more time?
740-942-1018. And that is the number for the Cadiz office of the Tri-County Help Center. And again, that would be the same number that you would call if you want to talk about getting scheduled in for counseling, or if you want to join. Now, the 35 and up support group meets in the Belmont County office on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month from 3:30 to 4:30. So again, I've got 2 support groups. I've got counselors in the office. So if anybody wants to utilize any of those resources, please, again, give me a call at 740-942-1018.
That's wonderful. And you know what? I tell you, we here at Life After the Party, we couldn't be happier to have you on there. We talked about it for a long time, but you just today, this episode, you opened up so much more that, as far as outreach, and that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different things. There's so many different. It's like roots from a tree. There's so many different things that all kind of pull together, and it's amazing and it's wonderful that there are people like you and there are outreach like Tri-County Help Center that are there for people, because before 1979 there wasn't anyone there for people. So we thank you immensely for everything that you've
amazing.
That you've done here today, and we just we would love to have you come back whenever there's more.
Listen, I would love to come back, and honestly, I thank you for this opportunity. And I wouldn't be where I am today without the women that came before me, were, had the mindset that we needed this, and that they
were courageous enough.
They were courageous enough, and they took their grassroots effort and built it into what it is today. And I will forever be grateful to be a part of this incredible organization.
Growing.
This is, it is a truly, truly special organization, and I am
completely indebted to them.
I am forever grateful to be
and
be a
well,
part
you
of
should
this.
be. We all should be, because those first back. I know we're trying to end, but think about that. 1979. Everyone was smoking in the house and listening. It was a different world, and that was coming from that generation was coming from a generation that was just in complete control, and you know, things were, that change in 79 had to be, I mean, that would be like trying to pull a Band-Aid off whenever you're like, just like, because I mean, think about that. Think about the opposition they probably had. I mean, that'd be interesting if we, you know, if there's a chance you could come back on, we could sit and just talk about some of that too. Because
I'd love that.
That's I mean, you think about that. You know, the day and age we live in, everything seems to be at our fingertips, right? But you think about back then, and like I can see it in your eyes and in your face when you talk about it. Yes, I mean, totally. If they wouldn't have asked for help, basically, think about it. Same, it goes full circle. If they wouldn't have asked for help, I mean, with each other, I'm sure, because I just picture it. Like that's how I kind of do things like that. Like I picture them being together and probably being in that situation and saying, "There's got to be something we can do that we can help others."
Well, there's no internet, just like how AA started. There's no internet. Nobody barely watched TV.
Yeah.
You played outside. You came inside. You drank your coffee. Like at my grandma's house, people came over all the time. So why not start it right there? I mean, you have no phone to look at. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the subject came up, and it just went from there.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, and again, I can't thank you enough for having me on.
No, we can't thank you enough. It was very interesting, and we could go on and on and on. But
there's going to be a part 2.
Yeah, there's got to be a part 2. So, all right, well. We thank you, and again,
thank you for coming on. Thank you for the listeners for tuning in, and this was another episode of
Life After the Party.
Later.